Hello, today's Bible study comes from Luke chapter 14, verses 25 through 35, and reads as follows. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, 'This person began to build and wasn't able to finish.' Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he is able to, with 10,000 men, to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000. If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still long a way off and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. Salt is good, but it loses its saltiness. How can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor the manure pile, and is thrown out. Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear." Well, once again, the large crowds were following Jesus, and Jesus had left the Pharisees' house, and turning to them, he said, "This is what you have to do." This is what he's basically saying to them. If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brother and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. Jesus wasn't telling you not to love, not to love, not to love here. What he was saying is, if you can't put all of this behind me, I have to be first. To be with the Lord has to be first. Hating your father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life. You don't worry about this life. You worry about the one who can destroy your soul. You don't have to, and you shouldn't put anybody, father, mother, brother, sister, whoever, in front of the Lord. The first and the greatest two commandments that Jesus gave: love the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul. That's what he's talking about here. He's telling you, if you want to be with him, you have to do these things. And he's talking about the kind of person who could not be his disciple here. If you can't do these things, you can't be his disciple. And with him saying that, Jesus is specific as to what we need to do to be disciples of his. Now, Jesus added things here because there's more to being his follower than simply accepting the invitation. Because a lot will accept the invitation, but the endurance, the perseverance, and everything that comes with the part of doing the work, will you still accept him and be strong during the working time? You know, it's just like when you get a new job. It's great for a while, but sooner or later you might get unsatisfied with it, or you get sick of the work and you just say, ah, this ain't the type of job you can go to. Will you stay in there? If anyone who comes to me does not hate his father and mother, or wife, and children, brother and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Jesus is telling a true disciple to come to him without reservation. You remember Lot's wife, when she was able to be freed, they said, "Don't look back," and she looked back. Make sure to set Jesus first. Every other relationship, I don't care what it is beneath the relationship that you have with the Lord. That includes your children, your wife, your mother, and your father. And you know how much you love each one, because They are physically here with you, and you are basing it on faith. But with your faith, you have to know the most important relationship that you can have is the one with the Lord Almighty. And this is a hard demand because I don't think you'll hear the prophets or the apostles ask for this kind of commitment and devotion, but Jesus can ask for it. Jesus asks for it and tells you you need it. It's not just a thought about it. It's just not a question. It is the truth. Jesus is not a mere man. He is not the prophets. He is not the disciples. He is not a mere man. There is no comparison to having a relationship with the Lord. And does not hate. Um, we know Jesus founded a way of love. Jesus was about love. When he says hate here, he's telling you you have to put him first and go against the world. There's a great difference that must be between our allegiance to Jesus Christ and our allegiance to the rest of the world. Your mom, your dad, your daughter, your son, your car, your house, your shoes, your clothes, your ways, traditions of man. That's the world. That's why hate is used here, because you have to see the difference and the strength of how hard this has to be. And strong you have to be. Jesus isn't saying that you can't have these relationships and all that. That's not even in the picture. The fact is, your relationship with him is first, period. You must give up this world. Verse 27 says, and whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Jesus was speaking to this great multitude and telling them what it is to be a disciple of his. And it is not just accepting an invitation. Faith without deeds is, you can read the rest. He tells them, bear the cross and come after me. And he said this to his disciples back in chapter 9 and 23. Being a follower of Jesus is something like bearing a cross. And I bet you this scared them because remember, Jesus was still on his way to be crucified. And this ain't something somebody want to hear. And then to be around and see it actually happen, that probably scared them even more. And at that time, carrying a cross, woo, that led to death on a cross. No one carried a cross for fun. Mm-mm. And although I'm sure they knew back in that time, we may not know, but carrying a cross meant you were going to death. It was an instrument of torture. It was humiliating. Remember, we had some who said they weren't worthy to be like Jesus, so they were hung upside down on the cross. But don't forget, bearing a cross meant you were marked for death. Jesus chose this statement, and it tells you in short that everybody has a cross to bear. Not just the death part, but you have a cross to bear with the pain and the suffering that comes with it because he had to go through it. And it may not look the same as everybody else. Some people may be able to handle it better than the other, but they all have a cross, an experience. And that means we become subservient and submissive to the Lord. And it also means you're going to have some suffering. Suffering comes with this territory. Then he says, and come after me. And that just meant if you picked up this cross, you were going to live the life of the cross. And you had to give up on this world. You had to do things that Jesus would do. And that was hard for man. That's still hard for man. And in short, it's just following Jesus at the very simplest level you could possibly say it. And when Jesus was on the road, see, we got to remember when Jesus was on the road and he was walking this road, Jesus was already letting us know he was on his way to the cross. He knew he was going to his death. He knew he was going to be crucified. He knew that he was going to have to carry his own cross. Jesus was walking in death's door, and he had his own cross to bear himself, and he wasn't afraid. He had faith in his Father. He was obedient to the end. That's what we have to do. Carefully measuring the cost of following Jesus. For which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down and first count the cost? And he talks you through all the costs and the things you have to do. Or else, while the other is still great way off, he sends a delegation to ask conditions of peace. So likewise, whoever of you does not forsake all, that he cannot be my disciple. Sit down first and count the cost. Jesus is telling you, see if you can follow me. The answer is you can't afford not to follow him. The question is, can you afford not to follow him? But he says, can you afford to follow me? You should be able to. Sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000. You can't refuse Jesus' demands. Jesus alluded to the idea of the work of his kingdom was like getting ready to go to war, go to battle. And they cost. Each of these are usually more than one thinks before beginning. Whoever of you does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple. Give up the world. The world is enmity against the Lord. Put God first. The rest will play as it should. Forsake all that he has. It says it right there. And if you look at the ancient Greek phrase, it means to say goodbye to. Jesus told us to say goodbye to everything we have and trusting everything into Jesus. And you can't be a lukewarm follower of Jesus. Salt is good, but if the salt has lost its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? You can't season anything if you don't have any flavor. It is neither fit for the land nor for the dunghill. It ain't even fit for poop. But men throw it out. You'll throw it out because it ain't no good. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Salt that loses its saltiness is of no use to anyone. And if you get corrupted or you lose your distinctiveness or your ability to keep being faithful to God, your flavor is gone. And you're no use to the Lord. Keep your salt. If he is neither fit for land nor the dunghill, salt is only useful when it is salty. And it only has one nature, to be salt, to add flavor, to enhance. The only way a Christian is useful is when they have the nature of Christ. If they don't have that, they're no good. They're not salty. So make sure you remember that to stay salty. Amen.